landscape and projects that have seen a fair amount of activity. The next speaker is actually someone who's a recent arrival on the CNCF scene, sort of like myself, but is much younger. Kunal is a 21-year-old who started Code for Cause. He'll have to explain exactly when, but has just been taking off like a rocket, right? Knowledge sharing, getting students involved in the CNCF landscape. And it's a big reminder to a lot of folks that come into our community and say, hey, like I don't have a lot of experience contributing. Also what, Chris was just talking about, Cassandra being such a global project, there really is a space for everybody. And also once again, just as a reminder in the CNCF space, that there really is a place for everybody, all right? No one is too much of a beginner to contribute. There are tons of different ways that you can help out. And Kunal is gonna tell us today about how we can scale our communities to make them more inclusive, all right? So if we can, we just need to add him as a panelist. Good. This is not the first time that Kunal has been with our community. He gave a talk actually last week on Friday, which was our first meetup that we had in Hindi, and very much have the intention of having more of those in the future. We've also had we've had other meetups with him as well. Pleasure to have you with us today, Kunal. How's everything going?
Hello, Bart. Hey, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. I'm super excited for KubeCon this year. It's going pretty good. Yeah, this topic is pretty important, and really looking forward to interacting with everyone, sharing the idea about the importance of diversity and inclusion in communities. But yeah, let's get this party started. Yep, let's do it. Cool. Okay, let me just share my screen quickly. Let me just, how do I present this in Keynote? Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can. Perfectly.
Okay, nice. So welcome everyone, and the topic for my particular talk is scaling communities to be more inclusive. And yeah, I'm Kunal. I'm a student developer from India. Recently, I became a CNCF ambassador. That was like really an awesome moment. And Bart also recently became a CNCF ambassador. So you can see like it's the entire community who are the CNCF community who are trying to get more young people involved in the ecosystem and just trying to promote the good work that other people are doing. Cool. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me via Twitter after the talk, but I'll try to answer as many questions as I can at the end of the talk. So before we get started with like the importance of inclusion and diversity, we have to address the point like what is actually a community? So what do you mean by when you say I'm a part of a community, and how does a community actually form? What keeps the community together? So when we're talking about a community, you have to see what are your community's shared struggles, because this is one of the most important aspects of what brings the community together. An example for this can be you have your local programming group in your particular college, right? So all of them might have the shared struggle of learning, like learning something new, applying whatever they are learning. Might have like a web development club. You might have like a League of Legends club, and their shared struggles would be like finding people to play online with and things like that. So you have to figure out what are your community's shared struggles. And one thing to note over here is that this might be different for various people. So it's some people in your community might be like, okay, I'm here to learn, and other people will be like, okay, I want to contribute to open source. Someone else would be like, I'm just here to explore, and someone else would be like, I already know a lot of things, but I just want to share my particular knowledge. I want to, let's say, teach or something. So Bart mentioned about Code for Cause. So Code for Cause is started with a YouTube channel, and my friends were like, hey, can you teach us Python online? I was like, okay, cool. So I started teaching them Python on YouTube channel. That was the very first session I did last year in April. And then I realized like it had like 5,000 something views on YouTube. So I was like, wow, people are really enjoying the content. And then I saw the comments on that channel like, hey, this is a really good Python content, so on and so forth. So that's the idea of how my community started, our community started. And the shared struggles, if I want to talk about the community that we have, is people find it difficult it's mostly consisting of students, right? So they find it difficult to, let's say, contribute to large scale open source projects. Some people have this misconception, like you have to be a pro in order to contribute to large scale open source projects. They have some, they lack awareness about, let's say, many open source programs. CNCF has its own open source internships, like the Linux Foundation internships, and this Google Summer of Code, and outreach, diversity programs, and so on and so forth. So that's like the whole idea about the community struggles that I saw, and we decided to, act upon that, and that's how we started Code for Cause. So you can see we have like collaborated with Bart as well quite a lot, and the whole idea is to get more people involved in the particular community. Next thing you need to know about your community is what is your mission, and that mission should resonate with like the shared struggles that your community members are facing. And this is true because when you're talking about forming your community, right? So we have to, the way we see it is we have to make sure that the priority of people who might be excluded from your community, right, for whatever reason, those priorities are met first, and then you are forming the community based around that. Because I'll talk about this more in detail, but to give you like a brief picture is like a mission can be, what do you want your community to be after, like, let's say 1 year or 2 year or even like 5 years or something. So yeah, that's about like the mission. And the third one is, what do members look to get out of your community? Now many people might be like overwhelmed, sometimes, like, okay, how do I join this community, or what am I going to give in return or something like that, or is it really like beneficial for me? So that motive should be clear, like, hey, if you join this community, you're getting like support, it's a very inclusive community, and these are all the things that we offer. You're going to be learning about this. For example, if you're into data on Kubernetes community, we have like some amazing podcast sessions. We are constantly like collaborating with people in the CNCF ecosystem. We are like a co-located KubeCon event. So yeah, you have to like, your members should know what they are going to get out of the community. Now let's talk about like effective communication. This is very important, and making your community future-proof. So talking about like diversity and inclusion, there's this one thing called the needs of various people, and how they are able to communicate with that. I'm going to be explaining like a lot of points in the future slides, but all of those points have the communication part in common. For example, if someone wants to report an incident, they should have a call to action or a person they can reach out to, the incidents team, for example. And if someone wants to share about their particular ideas, right? So they can reach out to, let's say, someone like, hey, I just had this random thought. I think this can really work, and maybe we can do this in the community or in the next event. In the another communication part can be like, let's say you are hosting an in-person event, whenever that might be, because of the whole situation right now. But I've had a slide for that over here. Yeah. So when you're hosting an in-person event, there might be many needs of various people. For example, when I was in KubeCon last year, they had like so many, for example, dietary restrictions many people may have. So you should take that into consideration as well. That also comes under diversity and inclusion. Many people who might, recently I gave a talk at the AI Student Ambassadors conference by Microsoft. And over there, the thing that I really like, they also had like a sign interpreter. That's the level of, inclusion that these events are having. And making your community future-proof is basically like the people who are managing community, they are going to change over time, right? So in order to make sure, like the one point I want to mention over here is make sure that the vision of your community is clear. Talking about importance of diversity and inclusion, which is in depth, which the topic of this session is about, which is it's very, very important, because people, coming from different cultural backgrounds, it's like a necessity nowadays for the growth of your IT sector, right? That's a pretty important stuff. And when talking about diversity and inclusion, the very most important point you have to keep in mind is who might be excluded from accessing the activities of your particular community. Now, for example, this might be someone who does not speak your particular language. Recently we did a session with Data on Kubernetes on a meetup in Hindi. So many people who are, let's say, not native English speakers, they could also learn more about the community and get involved. So you have to make like the way I do is you can make a list. You can see, okay, these people can be, finding it difficult to get into a community. It can be people from different countries, for example, for which the CNCF has like the diversity and need-based scholarships, for example. So this is a very, very important point when you're talking about the diversity and inclusion part, to make your community more accessible to other people, which is, first you have to figure out what are all the activities that people might be finding difficult to access in your particular community. The next point is how to handle like the negative scenarios and designing your community's needs. So if I'm talking about needs, So there are two types of needs that are facilitated and needs that are not facilitated. Let's talk a bit more about this. So if you're if you're conducting an event, right? So what I would recommend is try to have like even events and special initiatives for people who are underrepresented in tech, because like I mentioned, when you're forming a community, form your community around the people who are underrepresented in tech, who might find it difficult to access the activities of your community, and then build your community around that. This is totally fine, and this is totally not unfair to other people who are not in the underrepresented group, because that's what the entire community is about. Be that people who are underrepresented, be that people who are not underrepresented, no one is getting excluded. But people who do need like special requirements, their needs are getting met. So for example, needs that are facilitated. You can, one way to do this is, like I mentioned in the previous slide, making a list of all the things that you feel like, can be useful. So for example, support for like various languages, providing support for them to attend your events, need-based scholarships, dietary restrictions. So for example, if you have food items, you can label on that food item like, okay, this contains this contains this. KubeCon, when we are registering for KubeCon in-person events, they ask for like your dietary things, like vegetarian, non-vegetarian, some other allergies or something. So you can definitely do that and mention all these things so that it's inclusive, for various people. Needs that are not facilitated includes something like you cannot arrange in that particular moment. But for example, if you have a particular event and there isn't, let's say, a feeding room, for example, for someone who is a working parent and are there with their child or something. So one of the best ways to deal with this is assure them and be direct about it, like really apologize, and we will definitely acknowledge the fact that you are listening to their particular needs. And beating around the bush is not a good idea. Just assuring them and acknowledging the feedback that they have provided is very, very important. And make a note of all these things so that you make sure that these needs are facilitated in the future events. So if you're at a particular event, then we learn from our things that we miss out on, right? So make sure that these things we have taken a note of these things, and then we can facilitate these needs in the future coming events. Last but definitely not least is the code of conduct. So when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, code of conduct is the most important thing. And code of conduct should include the rules of your particular community and how to be, definitely, like, even though things that are pretty obvious, like be respectful, be kind, don't discriminate based on anything. So all these things you have to mention. The rules section in that you have to mention. For example, if someone is spamming, that is not necessary, and no illegal activities. For example, one of the most important parts in the code of conduct is people to reach out to. So make sure you provide your contact information over there, like the emails that people can reach out to in order to report a violation of the code of conduct, phone numbers, so on and so forth. People they can reach out to via emergencies. And to sum up, just all the slides I mentioned, like, facilitating the needs, figuring out what activities people might not be able to, easily access, forming your communities around underrepresented groups so that they can get more involved. The way we do it is we do like special live streams, podcasts. I do like content creation related to people who are underrepresented at opportunities for women in tech, for example. There's so many amazing communities and companies as well who have like diversity hiring programs, which is a really awesome. So spreading awareness about these sorts of things is it's going to be helpful. Again, just give them a platform, give them a space to network and collaborate, and everyone has their voice, right? So it's really important that everyone's voices are heard. Thank you. That was it for this particular session. And if you have any feedback or anything for me, you can reach out to me on Twitter, and now we'll be able to take any questions.
Very, very good. Kunal, fantastic. Right on time. Kunal is very accessible, extremely active, as you just got. We got some good stuff in here as well too. One comment as well about documentation I think was really good. Someone mentioned on YouTube having documentation that's perhaps available in multiple languages, because everyone is good or has a different level when it comes to different languages. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind, which is also exactly why, as Kunal said, we had a meetup in Hindi that was phenomenal. Like, I had so much fun. Obviously my Hindi is very limited, but it's a great way to learn to embrace another
Yeah.
culture, to be in a different space. Anyway, it's absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much, Kunal. You will see a lot of news happening about Kunal this week for sure. So keep your eyes open on Twitter because there's going to be a lot of stuff going on for Code for Cause, for his ambassadorship. I believe something new related to developer relations also with Civo, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Civo Cloud.
So that's also in the news too. Anyway, Kunal, thank you very much. We will have you back again on our meetup very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Cheers. All right. Our next speaker is also a CNCF ambassador, but who's in a different part of the world, who's also